So where do you put your money? Which lane do you put it in when we're talking about your business finances? Now, I'm talking outside of the normal spectrum of anything a CFO would do. I'm talking about how do we position this for growth to build brand power. And that's what we're going to break down here. I'm going to use the brand matrix and show you guys how that actually applies by giving you some principles and talking a little bit more in depth about the brand formula that I use when I work on building a roadmap, essentially, on where a business is at. Because one thing that we have to ask ourselves is, where are we at right now? Because that's going to determine where we need to put our finances and how we're going to grow from there. So, those of you joining me right now, my name is Justin Bordeaux. I'm a performance brand strategist, and I've been building brands for 23 years now, nationally, and I've worked with brands internationally. And what I want to focus on here is, how do we not only figure out the verticals, because there's some core fundamentals we do need to discuss, and that comes down to making sure that we have the right pricing model, making sure that our pricing services is clear to the customer, but then also making sure that we have a healthy budget. And I understand some businesses don't have a budget, but it's important to understand where you need to get to, which for small businesses, it's going to stem anywhere from 5 to 7% of your total gross that you're bringing in. Now, I understand that profit margins are small. And this is the thing, even being at a 10 to 15% profit margin, you're really at high risk from just shutting down. And this is one of the plights and struggles of small business. Now, a good healthy margin would be 7 to 10%. But again, obviously, we need to figure out where finances are at. So as I mentioned, a business consultant would come in and look at your finances and figure out, we're going good here, we're doing good here, how are we going to grow, how can we break this up? So I'm going a little bit further. I do look at the finances because every part of the business, let me start here. I'm going to go back. Every business has problems. Every single business has problems. What are those problems? Most businesses don't know what problems they have. So we have to do reviews like this. The best place to look is looking at the books to figuring out how we can even grow, because this moves us into the operations. But before I get ahead there, we also need to figure out what incentives are we offering, which impact the culture as well, which impact the brand. And this is where I want to talk about this, because there's a lot of misconceptions about where we're at, how much money we need to put in, because there's all this talk about, I want to build brand, I want to build something amazing, but the company's trying to keep its doors open. This is definitely not a place that you want to start dumping your money into, because building a brand, it takes time. Building a brand properly takes time. It takes engineering and making sure that every single component of the silo, from the operations to the culture to the marketing, sales, measuring impact, leadership, and the business model itself, and knowing what business you're in, all impact everything. So every single silo is costing you money. And this is why I want to talk about finances aside from the formula first, because the financial model, we need to make sure that if there's places that we can actually fine tune all parts of the brand matrix, this will help us out in our finances. Now, this is business consulting on what they do. And then the next step is to figuring out the formula. Now, we have sales, marketing, and brand. Now, something to understand about sales and marketing, and I'll break this down a little bit more when I talk about those segments, is that your two silos right here, it's conversion point 1, conversion point 2. A lot of people end up focusing so much on marketing, they forget about sales. They forget to convert, because there's 2 conversion points, marketing and sales. Good marketing really, and marketing in itself is just testing, but good marketing is ensuring that we've set everything up for sales. Think of this more as like an 80-20, 90-10 kind of thing. And sales, when we love what we do, and we believe in what we're selling, we can then shift to a different kind of experience that we're giving our customers. Now, it's important to understand is that if you are trying to keep your doors open, we need to figure that out, because that means we need to do sales. And then with the marketing piece here, the strategy that I would end up using is not trying to get new leads. I would actually work on going back and getting the customers that you already had. It's far easier to build up rapport with customers we already had, reintroduce things, recultivate that relationship. It's like seeing a friend that you haven't seen in a long time. We're able to rebuild what we've done there. And that's so important. And then what we need to figure out here is, where does brand come in? Because if we're trying to keep the doors open, we need to dump money into marketing and sales. And then what we need to do in brand, we don't necessarily need to dump money into it. We need to figure out, is there something broken? Is there something that we can fix? How can we improve the experience? And that's the big thing here. The brand strategy outlines the experience. And then in finances, we figure out, hey, how can we build that experience? Maybe it's we improve the operations. Does it really cost money to improve the operations? Maybe some time in the conference room to figure out a new solution to automate, outsource, eliminate, and make the experience all that much better. And you can start to see how they start blending together. When we can figure out where we're really truly at by looking at sales, marketing, and brand, we can then start fine-tuning what our brand strategy, operation strategy needs to be. And these three segments right here, let's take it to another example though. I want to talk about market share. I want to talk about building brand power. If there's any time that anybody needs to be thinking about this particular moment right now, is where they're at and how they're going to survive a financial collapse. Because history repeats itself. This is not the first time that many of us have been through this. And one thing to consider here is that one of the biggest things that happen historically in times of financial crisis and turmoil in industries anywhere is that, specifically here in the United States, we end up focusing on how can we buy up another business. Mergers and acquisitions go through the roof around this time because they're looking to buy revenue. You're actually buying revenue, or you're buying a new process, a new system that will make your brand better, or someone buys your system or process in your business because it's going to make their brand better. And then the other thing that we're looking to do when we want market share is we're looking to buy the audience. Again, like I said, it comes down to not really trying to get new customers. It's trying to get customers that are already there. And so if we want to actually really improve where we're at when it comes down to the financial model and we want market share, we need to figure out how can we solidify our sales. And usually in these situations, sales conversions are looking good. They're healthy. And then marketing is a roller coaster. I'm going to be honest, because it changes so much. There's so much involved. That's a whole other segment. But then with the brand is, how can we make this experience that much better? Let me give you one more example. Let's say that I'm working with a legacy brand and they come to me. It's a father-son. And it just happens because I've worked with a father-son, so I'm using them as an example, is that the father was looking to retire. He actually wanted to hand down his business to his son, and his son did business differently. Now, what he wanted to do was make sure that they kept the sanctity of the brand itself, because the son was all about new technology, which is essential, but he was worried that it would alienate the current customers that they had. It was a viable concern to have. So what we ended up doing was figuring out, how can we roll this out? What are the processes here? How can we create and maintain the experience? Because everything else is healthy. We didn't want to change the brand too much. This is actually what happened with Tropicana. Tropicana, what happened with them was that they ended up redesigning their entire package, the logo, the package. Now, their sales dropped by millions. They lost so much money because when people went to the supermarket, they looked at that and it looked so far from the original that they were afraid to actually buy it. When we make brand changes, we also need to keep in mind that we need to make them in a way that shows that we're growing, but doesn't show that we've changed too much under new management. The only time that this new management thing works is if the business was struggling and we need to revitalize its image. So as you can see, there's so many different scenarios, but the base core formula we need to follow here is, after we find out where we're at, is do we invest in sales, marketing, or brand, and then we can tweak the formula for there, because as we grow, we change, so do our needs, so do our customers' needs. So that's the finance formula for branding. And next, we're going to go ahead and talk about operations, but put a pin in this one, because we're going to come back to a lot of it. But this is actually a core fundamental thing here, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.